Flumen est RR, quod per fines haeduorum et sequenorum in Rhodanum influit. Incredibili lenitate, ita, ut aculis in utrum partem fluat judicare non possit. Oh yay, another geography lesson from Caesar. He starts off describing this flumen, so that's a pretty easy trunk, flumen est RR. And what do we know about the RR flumen? Well, he's given us a quod, which in this instance is a relative clause talking about the R, so he describes it, which per fines haeduorum et sequenorum, so we've got a prepositional phrase here. Per is the preposition, fines is the object, haeduorum et sequenorum is a genitive phrase that describes the borders. And then we have another prepositional phrase, in Rhodanum. So he tells us a couple things about the RR River. This is where it flows, and this is where it is. Okay, and apparently it's not a very fast river. He's got this ablative phrase here. Incredibili modifies lenitate with incredible slowness, such, ita, that, and this is a result clause. It goes with such slowness that. Before we finish the result clause, did you notice how Caesar has two subjunctive verbs here? So, which part is for the result clause? Well, inside this result clause, we have an indirect question. So first we'll do the result clause. Such slowness that it, the subject of posset is it is not able to be decided, to be judged. What is not able to be judged? This indirect question. Into which part or direction it is flowing. So utrum here is your question word that shows that we have a indirect question. Again, this is the result clause. With such slowness that it is not able to be decided into which direction it flows, i.e. the river. It is not able to be decided with the eyes. So this is the indirect question that is dependent upon judicare. Id helvetii ratibus ac lintribus junctis transebant. Okay, id, of course, is from is ea id, that's neuter, and it is still referring to the RR River. We don't know if it's nominative or accusative because it is neuter, and that could be either form. But helvetii sure looks like a nominative plural, so that's most likely the subject. So the Helvetians are planning on doing something to this river. Then we have an ablative phrase, ratibus ac lintribus junctis. So whatever they're going to do to the river, they are going to use these ablative guys here. Oh, and then here's the verb, transebant. By now, you should recognize trans is the preposition that is stuck onto the beginning of a word, ebant. That's the root of going. So apparently the Helvetians were crossing id, that is the RR River. So let's pretend you don't know the meaning of ratibus ac lintribus junctis. You should be able to use context clues. I betcha they're not going to be crossing the river on a plane. They would probably use some sort of rafts and join together flotation devices or something. Ubi per exploratores Caesar certior factus est, tres iam partes copiarum Helvetios id flumen traduxisse, quartam vero partem citra flumen ararum reliquam esse, de tertia vigilia cum legionibus tribus et castris profectus ad eam partem pervenit, quae nondum flumen transierat. Okay, Caesar starts out with ubi, which tells us we've got a dependent clause, when, and we're going to find out where this clause ends in a second. But first he gives us a prepositional phrase, through exploratores, i.e. from his scouts, Caesar certior factus est. Hopefully by now you recognize that this means to learn or find out, and it introduces indirect statement. Caesar was made certain that he found out that, and your indirect statement starts here. So we're going to tackle the indirect statement, but keep an eye out. We're still inside a dependent clause, so we need to figure out where the main sentence is, as well as where the indirect statement finishes. So we've got tres iam partes, copiarum talks about the three parts. Notice this is accusative, but since it's indirect statement, we have yet to figure out if it is the subject of the indirect statement or if it is the direct object of the indirect statement. We just know that we've got three parts of the troops. Helvetios, oh look, there's another accusative. You can't have two accusatives in a row that are not connected unless one of them is a subject and the other is the direct object. So most likely the Helvetians have done something to the three parts of their troops. Id flumen traduxisse. Oh, there it is. Here is the verb of the indirect statement, traduxisse. So far, when Caesar found out that the Helvetians had done this, led across that river, what did they lead across? Tres iam partes copiarum. So that is part of the indirect statement there. But then, you know how Caesar likes to do this. He always talks about three things. Look, he also has a fourth part there. Quartam vero partem. So this is accusative, and we still have to figure out if it is the subject or the direct object of another verb in the indirect statement. A fourth part, prepositional phrase on the side of the RR river. Oh, and then here is your infinitive that goes with quartam vero partem. Reliquam esse, two-part verb. That's a perfect passive infinitive. So this is the end of your indirect statement. He found out that this happened, and Caesar found out the fourth part had been left on the closer side of the RR river, i.e. the side where the Romans are probably heading to. Now we're going to keep going. Prepositional phrase, de tertia vigilia, around the third watch. Notice another prepositional phrase here, with 3 legions. And another prepositional phrase here, from the camps. Oh look, profectus, participle, masculine, nominative, singular, going all the way back up to Caesar. So when Caesar found out all this stuff, having set out, another prepositional phrase, to that part, oh, there it is. There is the main verb. Caesar arrived at that part. Caesar, having set out from the camp, he arrived at that part, i.e. this fourth part of the Helvetian peoples that we were talking about before. He arrived at that part. Then here's a relative clause describing that part. That part, quae, which had not yet crossed the river. Here you can see the end of that relative clause there.